Hi everyone. Well, I just wanted to do a really quick book review because I just finished reading this book today and I loved it so much. I wanted to do a review while it's still fresh in my mind. So this is the book, The Road to Gondwana by Bill Morris, In Search of the Lost Supercontinent, and I loved it. I thought this was a great book. And the reason why I liked it, well, the reason why I wanted to read it was I just wanted a primer on Gondwana. It's a very important continent or site, whatever you want to call it, for the evolution of birds. Now, there's not much in here about birds, but I just wanted a primer on Gondwana itself, and this book was great. I think Bill's a really good writer and very knowledgeable. I'd like to read other stuff that he's done. So I guess its strengths was, he starts by, or the way he gets into it is by how the concept or the actuality of the continent of Gondwana was discovered. So it really goes back over the early history of geology and paleontology. So I learned a lot, not just about those sciences, but how that came to explain Gondwana. And yeah, it's just a great overview. Every now and again he kind of dips into a snapshot of what was happening at Gondwana at certain periods of time, and he links it together, kind of building up to mass extinction events, and goes into the reasons for them, which is really quite interesting, like an added bonus. I wasn't expecting that. And then at the end he kind of brings it together, looking at global warming, and relates our situation now to some of the things that we've seen you know, through the course of the book with the mass extinction events. So that was a nice twist. I guess it's a little bit different at the ending, so because that's not principally about Gondwana, but it's something that we learn now from our situation now, from what we learn about discovering about the past in Gondwana. Yeah, it was just a really good book. I'm kind of rushing because I haven't got much time here, but I really enjoyed it. I guess, you know, slight criticism. These are by no means anything major. They're very slight, don't let them worry you. But there's a couple of times where he goes into a bit of a travel log, talking about going to the Falklands Islands and Argentina and a little bit in New Zealand, which is where he's from. And like, that's okay because it covers certain points, but then all of a sudden you're reading a travel log rather than a science book. And you know, it wasn't that bad. I've read other books that have a lot more of that in it, which kind of detracted from the theme or the points, and they were far more travelogue than, you know, the point. And what was that book called? I can't remember. I'll do a review of it. But there's not much of that in here, but to me personally that just kind of stood out a little bit. I think maybe obviously you've got to go places to research, but then write about the content rather than the journey there and your experience there. Or just do a book all about the journey and the experience. A couple of minor little factual things which kind of surprised me. There's a few times he talks about Earth only being 50,000 years, not Earth, modern human beings on Earth only being 50,000 years old. And look, anatomically modern humans have been here for at least 200,000 years, quite possibly all the way back to 300,000. And certainly that 200,000 figure is very well established, so I'm surprised he quoted 50,000 a few times. And what was the other? Oh, it's only a little minor thing, but he did mention about the loss of atmosphere in Mars, and I don't even think he suggested any theories. I know I might be wrong, but I think it's the loss of the magnetosphere allowed the atmosphere to be blown away, I think, by the solar particles, I think. But there are certainly theories about why that happened, and I thought maybe you should have canvassed that a little bit. And it's kind of cute because he talks about Glossopteris, if I pronounce that correctly, which is a very common plant in Gondwana, and he's really tracing the discovery of their fossils. That's the way he links it all, and he obviously loves plants. There's a lot in here about plants, and at the end he talks about the Gaia theory and the ability of plants to regulate the environment here. But I think it's really important to add animals into that as well, because if it's just plants, well, you know, then we're going to have an abundance of oxygen in the atmosphere. So it's a relationship between plants and animals that balance things. And particularly after that last book I read, Wildlife in the Balance, which is all about animals. So, and this was kind of more about plants. It's a combination of the two that's critical. And you know, he does mention a bit about how there's increasing plant matter in the world at the moment, and that's a good thing. But you've got to be really careful and critical about that, because you're certainly not getting increased old growth forests, because they take a couple of hundred years to develop, and so the services that they provide for animals just aren't there. We may have you know, spreading you could have, I mean, no doubt there's some spreading forests. He talks about that as the world warms up, they're able to retreat, to travel closer to the poles. But you know, a lot of what's grown, if it's invasive weeds, if it's grassland, if it's small low-level stuff, it's certainly not 200 or 300 year old trees and all of the things that they provide for animals. So, you know, it's not necessarily a good thing that we're getting lots of that greenery as opposed to ones that are going to support animals in a very complex ecosystem. You know, because the biodiversity is just not there and can't be supported unless you have a lot of mature plants in there, and so that's something that's of a big concern and something which wasn't really addressed. So, you know, addressing the animal part of it as well as the plant parts. And then, you know, right at the very end, he jumps forward 250 million years and predicts what Gondwana might be like then. The world, and all the continents have drifted back together at that stage. And really, that's the other thing he explains really well too, is plate tectonics and the way the continents are moving together and moving apart, and it's just, you know, cyclical. And it's it was really really well explained. I understood a lot out of that. I think he did a great job with that. But yeah, and so the continents eventually will reform together again. I can't remember what it's called, Pangea or something, at that stage, and he kind of predicted almost there might be sentient plants. I mean, that's taking a I guess only plant lover would say that, but that's taking a big leap. At the moment, that's not possible because plants are organised, you know, in a cellular way. They don't have a centralised system of organisation, and that's necessary, really, as far as we can tell, for I don't want to overstate it by saying consciousness, but certainly for intelligent awareness. You need to have a centralised system with a high amount of energy concentrated in a neural centre, i.e. a brain. I'm not saying plants don't respond to their environment, of course they do, but it's totally different. I mean, what I'm trying to say is plants as they are now couldn't do that kind of thing, but who knows what they might do in 250 million years. So it was an interesting possibility, or interesting thing to throw in there. But anyway, look, I really liked this book. I couldn't wait to read all of it and finish it. It was great. So if you want a good primer on Gondwana, I would start with this. I think eventually I'd like to read a book that looked at the whole history of the continent and how things evolved where. And I guess another thing I liked about it was a lot of the books I've read just about evolution, they talk about the growth of life and the evolution of plants and animals, but they don't always situate it. It's not always clear what continent where, you know, and what the landforms on Earth are like at certain times. I don't think that's well enough explained, and he explained some of that quite well, so now I've got to recontextualise that with what I know about yeah, the evolution of life. So anyway, look, this is a bit of a rushed review, but I like the book so much I wanted to do it. So do yourself a favour, get out and read this. It was really good. Not a lot about birds. Birds, of course, Gondwana was the centre of bird evolution for quite a while, so I'll have to go to other sources for that, but it's given me quite a decent overview on Gondwana to start with. It's a good primer, and I learned a lot of extra things that I wasn't expecting to. So thanks, Bill. Look forward to something else that you do. Okay, see you then. Thanks guys, bye.